Good evening, everyone. We are here. It's me and my lovely colleague, friend, Sushruta from WelTec and Whitireia. Sush, welcome to our
Thank
session.
you.
Thank you for joining us. It's 7:30 p.m., just getting into 7:30 p.m. New Zealand time. And my name is Arunima, for those of you that have not seen one of our sessions previously, which is highly unlikely, seeing that this is the 9th session that we're doing. And we are bringing hand-selected education providers and experts from these providers to have a conversation with you, to get an understanding of not just the courses, but everything around the courses as well. It is immigration that goes with the courses. What's the entry requirements? What's the place where you're going to be studying? What's the mode of delivery? So we talk about lots and lots of things. And I think this is your really unique opportunity to be able to ask us questions that are related to courses. I would suggest people that if you have really just immigration questions, you're more than welcome to post them, but I'm not going to pick them up in the session because this session is exclusively to talk about Wellington Institute of Technology and Whitireia with Sush. Sush, before I get into the session, can you please introduce yourself to the people that are listening to us today? Just tell us about what you do and how you do it so well.
Okay. Thanks very much. Great to be here. Hi, everyone. My name is Sushruta Medikuruke. I'm the regional manager for Southeast Asia at Wellington Institute of Technology and Whitireia, New Zealand, two of the institutes of technology in Wellington region. So what I do is I do marketing, business development, institution relationships, partnerships for WelTec and Whitireia in my regions of responsibility. I've been doing that since Jan 2017, so it's almost 3.5 years now when I came back to Wellington. Prior to that, I was with ARA in Christchurch for around 4 years. That's when I got introduced to marketing. Basically, I've been in the international education sector for over a decade now. But prior to marketing and business development, I was mainly doing education policy and international relations for the Ministry of Education and Education New Zealand. And look, like many of my colleagues here, I've been an international student in New Zealand. So I kind of, although it's been a while, but I still kind of know how it feels to be an international student in New Zealand and what you go through as an international student. And that's one of the reasons why I got into this anyway. So I can pass on some of the knowledge I've gained over the years I've lived and worked in New Zealand to those who are considering New Zealand as a study destination.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic because I think that's something that makes us really good at our job in the international education space, because we have been through that journey. And I think through those journeys, like I was an international student, and I think through those journeys, we bring our own unique experiences and our unique flavors to the people that we help. So that's great, Sush. With all of that experience, I'm really, really privileged and pleased for you to join us today.
That's great to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. So now, before I get into the scheme of things, I want to just, for people that are listening and don't know this, because I was pretty confused at the beginning. So you've talked about two really big brands. You've talked about Whitireia and you've talked about WelTec. And they are two separate brands, but they're not. Can you just talk us through that?
Sure. Look, we are all part of the bigger New Zealand Institute of Skills and Technology now. We are subsidiaries of NZIST. The two brands are independent, but it's a strategic partnership. So the idea behind the strategic partnership is to give students more options. I mean, we've given students in the Wellington region and beyond more options now. With this partnership, students can choose to do a variety of programs across our two campuses, and expect the same quality and the same level of program delivery across our campuses. So basically, that's the whole reason behind the strategic partnership, is to give students the choice and access to a much broader range of programs than what they used to have before.
Brilliant. And so Wellington Institute of Technology is the Polytech or Institute of Technology for the Wellington region.
Yep.
So that is the only and the Institute of Technology in the Wellington region. Am I right?
Yeah, Wellington Institute of Technology and Whitireia, New Zealand are the only institutes of technology in the Wellington region. Now that we are in a strategic partnership, it's basically we are the only institutes of technology in the Wellington region.
So it's
brilliant. So it's quite a strong position.
That's brilliant. So I think one of the things that I've been advising clients as in my practice as an immigration advisor for the longest time is that if you are looking at starting your career or getting a skill job in a specific region, it makes the most sense for you to start off with your education in that region. And I think today I want to talk about sort of just set the scene with Wellington. So, in December 2019, there was a report out by the media that Wellington is a really strong job market, was a really strong job market. The media reported late last year that while the rest of the country was flattening with the job offerings, Wellington was still soaring quite high. What is this? That's sort of Wellington. So that was pre-COVID, I understand. Things may be different sort of post-COVID. Do you have any comments to add there with Wellington? Because we know it's always been a really attractive place, really strong job market. Certain industries have been quite dominant in that area. So do you just want to add anything to that for the people that are listening?
Sure. Look, Wellington has always had the most highly educated and highest paid workforce in New Zealand. Pre-COVID, like you mentioned, that report came out. Yeah, that's true. Now, post-COVID, of course, there are some industries that have been hit due to the COVID-19 situation. Things like hospitality, of course, they've been badly hurt. But look, there's a big emphasis on infrastructure projects from the government going forward. So there's been a lot of investment in infrastructure projects. So that's going to continue once we go back to level. It's already started anyway. So there are massive infrastructure projects across the Wellington region. So we see that continuing. Wellington's always had a strong IT sector. And with the move to online and digital, I don't see those sectors. There might be a temporary hiring freeze, for example, in some of those industries. But the move to online and digital, we would definitely need more people in those areas. So I don't see them. There might be a kind of a downhill in the short term, but longer term, those industries will definitely continue to do well for Wellington. Creative industries. We recently read in the news about the Avatar film crew having come to New Zealand. So that industry is still doing well, and they'll continue to do well post-COVID as well. So engineering, information technology, creative technology, and things like fintech. A lot of financial tech companies based out of Wellington. Again, with the move to online and digital, those kind of companies will take precedence as well. So those sectors, I'm quietly confident.
Brilliant. And I think just putting my immigration hat on, putting my immigration hat on, just getting my head around and advising people that this is sort of a blip. There is a downfall at this stage. And this is really a good time for a lot of people to think carefully where they want to upskill themselves, because if you align yourselves in those right spaces, right locations, right courses, it's very likely that you put yourself really out there for those job markets. So, with WelTec, there's a range of courses available across business. There's English courses to get into these, the certificates in English. There's construction courses that I want to talk about. There's engineering courses. You've got health, social sciences, IT, and creativity. So there's a few courses that I really want to delve into today. It's obviously not going to be enough time to be able to go through everything, but I do want to start off with the creative technology courses. So you've just talked about, and those of you that are listening, multimedia designers, that is a career outcome of these courses that is in the long-term skill shortage list. And, there are some fantastic outcomes that Sush is just going to tell us with these courses. So the two main courses that I'm looking at in the creative space is the grad dip, Sush, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and it's the bachelor's in creative technologies.
Yes. So it's the Bachelor of Creativity and the Graduate Diploma in Creativity with a specialization in digital media.
So tell me about that. What does that mean? Like, what is the kind of student you're looking to get into the course, and what's the kind of career outcome you're looking from the course? So we get a fair understanding of the course.
Basically, we're looking at students who've got a broad set of creative skills. We can't teach someone to be creative, right? So that's something that we are very particular about. So we need students with a strong portfolio to come into the program, either after your high school, if you want to do the Bachelor of Creativity, which is a 3-year program, or if you already have a degree in any field, but have experience in multimedia, animation, graphic design, and have a strong portfolio, then you can do the Graduate Diploma in Creativity.
But you definitely need to have experience?
Not experience, but a portfolio. So you need to have a strong portfolio. So the portfolio determines whether you get into the program or not just your academics. You may have A+ or 90%, but if you have a weak portfolio, it doesn't matter. You won't get in. So it's all about the portfolio. So what we want to do is take those skills that you already have and fine-tune it, give you the latest that the industry is looking for, because all our lecturers are industry professionals. For example, one of our lecturers has been a workshop manager for the Lord of the Rings movies, right? So these are the kind of people you're learning from. Okay, so they tell you what's going on. They still have those connections with the industry. Places like WETA, we've got around 7 graduates working for WETA at the moment. So it's quite a strong area for us, the whole digital media animation side of things. But that's what we're looking, that's what people are looking at. And it's not just WETA. Wellington has quite a few companies involved in the digital media space. Pickpock, I think, is an example as well, along with WETA. They're quite, like I said, these big budget Hollywood movies get made here. Avatar is an example that's being currently made here. So there's definitely opportunities for students to get involved in those things. I'm not saying you'll get a job in WETA, but it's just the opportunity to work alongside these industry professionals. We've got them on our board, on our advisory board as well. So you get to meet them, you hear from them, and that's a great way to learn. When you're in a region that's full of creative people, it's a great way to learn those programs.
So just for me to get my head around this is actually making, so are there other opportunities, or can people choose other streams rather than just multimedia? And the reason why I ask is because through COVID-19, a lot of businesses have gone digital. Things that were never thought of being done digitally are now being done digitally. I mean, look at us, we started doing all these digital sessions. And so this is a new way of doing things and a new way of business for a lot of businesses across the world. And so the demand for people to be experts in that digital media, digital marketing, social media kind of space is higher than ever. Does this course provide outcomes for like graphic designers or social media experts, or is it just focused on multimedia?
I mean, it's focused on the creative sector. It doesn't necessarily mean you just focus on multimedia. We bring out your creative side. So you can apply that anywhere. It doesn't matter. I mean, you can apply that to a marketing space. You can apply that in a graphic design environment. You can create books if you want. You can create multimedia. You can create digital copies. You can even the program is structured in such a way that students actually get involved in the physical side of things as well. For example, if you want, say, you've seen the Avatar movie. So you've seen the big tree and the tree of life and all that. So when students create something digitally, they also have to do a physical specimen of the same as well. So it's not just sitting in front of a computer and doing animation. Students actually create real objects. They use laser cutting, they use 3D printing. So it's the whole experience. So it's not just focused on multimedia as such. We try to give you a wholesome creative experience. So you can apply that to any industry.
Which is brilliant. And I think that's exactly the kind of skill that you need to be able to then say, well, you know what, I really like post-production, so I'm going to go into that side of things but I've also done graphic, and I've also done this, and I've also done web, but I actually want to go. So that's exactly what I wanted to get to. So that's great. Guys, you know, there's a lot of outcomes, and this course can kind of bring you to that platform to get into different areas, whether that's getting into social media, getting into graphic design, getting into print, getting into multimedia. So there's a lot of opportunities there. Sush, this now leads me into my next question. It's not sort of flowing in the chronological order that I had advised you it would, but I think it's flowing quite organically.
Yeah, that's fine.
With your institutes, we've talked about employments and industry placements, and that's obviously quite a big thing right now. And I mean, for us, when we are placing our clients with institutes, there's a lot of conversations around pathways and what the course will lead them to do, whether they take it back to their home country. But we all know that New Zealand's a very attractive place for people to kind of settle down, build a career. So what is the industry support, that connecting that student to the industry support that's provided by WelTec and Whitireia?
Look, because we are an Institute of Technology, it's kind of in our DNA to make sure that our programs have those industry connections. All our programs have a big industry project in their final year. If you're doing an undergraduate program, then you do a big industry project in your final year. If you're doing a graduate diploma, for example, then you have in your second semester, you work on an industry project. If you're doing a postgrad or a master's program, again, there's an internship component. There's a practical element there where you do a project. We work with a lot of industries within the Wellington region and beyond. We've got those connections because, look, we've been in this region for over 100 years now. So we built those connections over a number of years. So the employers know what to expect from our graduates. They're confident about the skills that they get, about the qualifications that they get from WelTec and Whitireia. And we have those connections in place already. So when we have students in their final year, they go out, do those industry projects. And as it happens, a number of those industries actually take those students on after their project because they know how these students work. They're happy with the kind of projects they have done, and they know that the students are job ready. And that's the key for us. We make sure that the students are job ready. And in the current environment, I think that's what most employers are looking for as well. They need someone who's job ready. And like I said, that's our mandate. We want to make sure that students are job ready. We work with some of the biggest companies in Wellington region. I mean, ANZ Bank, for example, all the IT companies like Intergen. We work with cybersecurity companies. So we've got those connections in place. We work with the local city councils for our engineering school, where they get into those councils who work on water and waste, for example. So there's some really strong industry connections there. And
I think, and it's really interesting that it's just come to my head. This is like our 9th session talking to education providers. And I think the common theme that I'm seeing rolling out, and I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I think, one of the biggest complaints that I had with the international education industry was that it was so disconnected with the skills that were needed in New Zealand. And, you had all of these other courses that people were coming in just because they'd done that course. But the conversation has drastically drifted to sort of, being in line with where those skills are, where the demand is, and people are a lot more switched on to know with the career choices, which is exactly why we're having these conversations. So that's really good information to have. This then leads me into, you've talked about some really big IT brands there, this leads me into the IT courses. And I think there's a range of suite of IT courses that I'm looking at. You've got the Bachelor's of Information Technology for 3 years at fantastic fees. And I am going to specify the fees once I've done this, because compared to a lot of the providers, and with the return on investment for that price and the fees that you're putting in, it is an unbeatable combination. There's a Bachelor's of Information Technology, there's grad dip in cybersecurity, the grad dips in IT, the PG dips in information technology, and the Masters in Information Technology. I specifically want to talk about the Bachelor's and the Masters, please. Sure. You're more than welcome to add on anything else, just because we've had interest from people that are looking at these courses.
Sure.
So the first question for you is, for the Bachelor's in Information Technology, the 3-year degree, that's about $20,000 per year. So if we have someone, there's a lot of people that have come into New Zealand, they had a BSc in IT or computer science from overseas, and they came in to do the grad dip in business because it's just, people like switching into business. It's just how the India market is. And they've been here for a few years. They've worked in different organizations, and they've realized that, that's not really working out for us. Some people may have, may want to go back into the bachelor's degree because what they've done is slightly different. And they may want to ask about the RPL, or they may want to move upwards into the PGs and the masters. Can you just tell me, with the profile of the student that I've just told you, what are the options for them? And if there is an opportunity for cross-crediting what they know and what they've done?
Yeah, well, of course, we will definitely look at the RPL process for students. We'll have to map their qualification with what we offer in our degree program. And based on how that maps out and how well they've done in their undergraduate program back in their home country, then we can definitely look at credits into our degree program. So we've got a process for that. There's the credit recognition application that students have to go through. And look, we'll try to make sure that we recognize whatever they've learned in the past. But it also has to fit in with what we offer. We don't, because we want to ensure that the students are successful. We don't want to just give them, say a year and a half, and then they come in the second year of a degree and then they struggle. That's not something that we want to do. So we want to make sure that we map both the programs well and give them a pathway that fits in with their requirements. Of course, if someone has a degree in IT, they can always go for either a grad dip in IT or a post-grad dip in IT. As far as masters go, look, I would recommend students come with some experience to do a master's program, at least a couple of years work experience in a hardcore technology area, not just say I've been on a help desk or I've been a system admin, but actually have done some software development or programming or project management for IT, some strong technical skills. If they do that, then they can, of course, opt for the Master of IT. But otherwise, yeah, you can RPL into a degree, or you can choose to do a grad dip or a PG dip in IT.
So just coming on to the master's bit, there is, I always talk about, this is the aftermath of COVID, and COVID has taught us a lot of things and how things can be done differently. So I do know of people who were working in New Zealand in different IT roles, have now been laid off, unfortunately, and they kind of need to really move up their career to be able to get to that lot, or just need to have, and a lot of them are considering upskilling themselves during this time so that, the storm passes and things settle down. For those people, they've got the bachelor's degree, they've got the work experience from overseas, they've done some work in New Zealand with some decent places, and they are looking at masters. What's the duration of the masters? Would it still be 18 months for them? And my second question is, what's the intakes? Because a lot of them will now have epidemic notice expiring on the 25th of September, and they've got visas expiring around that time. So they'll be looking at sort of an intake which is close by.
Right. Look, our masters will still be 18 months for those students, unless they've already started on a postgraduate program in New Zealand, and they would want some credits into our master's program. Then we can look at the RPL process again for such students. Otherwise, they would have to do 18 months. In terms of intakes, we have March and July intakes for our Master of IT programs in both Wellington and Auckland. We are looking at alternatives in light of what's happened now. I can't give you a definitive answer at this stage whether we plan to introduce another intake for masters later in the year, but I can tell you that we are actively considering other intakes for this year, and hopefully we can get back to those who are interested with some sort of an update fairly quickly on that.
Is that just specific to masters, or is it across the board?
Across the board. Look, we are looking at what's possible for the rest of the year. We do have a November intake for certain programs already, like the grad dip in IT and the grad dip in business. It's just about trying to figure out how we can fit other programs in, because we do have a domestic intake for those programs as well. So we have to work around domestic concerns as well. So we have to make sure we take into account our domestic students as well, especially in the Wellington region. So that's something that we are looking at, and hopefully we will have an answer for you sooner rather than later around other intakes.
Cool. Okay. One of the other things that I wanted to pick up is that there are, one cohort of people are the ones that, have lost jobs. They're in New Zealand, they're looking at studying again. But then there's the one big cohort of people are the ones that were on transition open work visas, and they've got their open work visas now coming to expiry. So they're expiring in the next few months. And some of them, you talked about the PGs in IT. So some of them have done their PGs in IT, whether it's from WelTec and Auckland or whether from other institutes, and they may be considering getting into the masters because they've done the PG. Now, they don't have the work experience because these are sort of students that got into the PGs, and then they're now looking at sort of getting into, they may have done the odd job, but they're looking at getting into the masters. My first question is, one, does the student meet the masters kind of profile? Second, masters in IT profile. Second is that if they do apply for RPL, what's the maximum RPL? Well, I just want to ballpark because it is case by case. But what's the maximum ballpark RPL that these people can get, and what's the minimum that they must absolutely study to finish the masters?
Look, in terms of that, to get into the master's program, like I said, we recommend that they have experience. But if they already have a postgrad dip in IT from a New Zealand institution or from, say, WelTec or Whitireia, then they are eligible to get into our master's program. In terms of the duration, considering the master's is 18 months, the first year is generally the postgraduate diploma. So they would have to do at least 6 months to get their master's. Okay, so that's the bare minimum. In terms of the papers, whether to do a applied research project or a thesis, that's something that we decide on a case-by-case basis. So every student who applies for a master's who already has a PG dip, our program manager for IT will go through their postgrad dip and figure out where they stand in terms of their academic performance, and also talk to the student in terms of what the student wants to do, whether they want to do a thesis whether they want to do an applied research project, and what other papers the student would need to do to complete the master's program. And that will determine the length of the program, but it would be at least 6 months.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. Okay, that's great. So just getting at on the back of that question, one of the questions that's just come to my mind is that, so if someone's looking for an RPL for an overseas qualification, is there a minimum number of years that this qualification must have been gained in, or is there a recent amount of time that this qualification must be less than 3 years or 2 years or whatever? Is there some recent requirement for that qualification, or can they have a qualification that was done 8 years ago and still request an RPL? How does it work?
For an RPL into the masters, or for?
Well, into any program, if they're just looking for an RPL, is there a limit on when that qualification should have been? Well, how long ago the qualification?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question, because in areas like IT, things change. I mean, they change every year. So our qualification gain, for example, say 5 or 6 years back, in some cases may be outdated already, because they wouldn't have studied what we are currently offering. So again, it depends on the papers they've done over the course of their program and how that fits into what we are currently offering. So again, that's why I said we will map it to ensure that they get the best possible outcome. If someone studied 10 years back, I mean, the kind of papers 10 years back in IT, I don't think they would even consider at the moment. So it's completely different. So so we will have to map each and every. That's why I said it's definitely on a case-by-case basis. That's why we don't commit to say everyone gets a year off or year and a half off.
Sure, thank you. I think moving along, now I've got this question here as well. There's a live question on the topic that I was going to ask you. It's around scholarships. You know, obviously with COVID, there's a lot of people that are financially tied. There's a lot of questions and interest in bursaries and scholarships. Where does WelTec and Whitireia stand on scholarships, and what is the criteria if there are some available?
Yeah, look, we've got scholarship across our bachelor programs in IT, in creative tech, for PG and masters in IT and management, and also grad dips in engineering. We do offer scholarships. For undergraduate programs, for the 3-year degree programs, we offer up to $6,000 in scholarships spread over 3 years. So you basically get $3,000 for the first year, $2,000 for the second, and $1,000 for the third. The idea behind that is we want to keep the students honest. So it's not just get a $6,000 scholarship and then your performance tails off.
Yeah.
$3,000 for the first year. You maintain a B+ average, you can get a $2,000 scholarship for the second year. You continue with your B+ average, you get $1,000 for the final year. Similarly, for PG and grad dips, we do $3,000 scholarships. And for a master's qualification, we do $5,000 scholarships. Entry criteria, basically you need to have an offer of place from us. Because the scholarships are competitive, it then depends on what else you bring to the table other than your academics. I mean, for example, if we have 2 applications, one just academic and the second one academic plus work experience, that kind of tips the scales in the other student's favor. So we're looking for a well-rounded individual, but bottom line, you need to have an offer of place from us. Without an offer of place, you can't apply for it.
But in terms of sort of, is there a quota? Like, is there a number of people that can get scholarships? Because you've talked about one person getting in and the profile sort of that's the best profile will get the best buck. Is there a number of people that can get scholarships, a minimum or a maximum number?
We have around 30 scholarships to give away. Not to give away, but to award rather every year. So around 30 scholarships across the programs that I mentioned.
Okay.
And
I would assume that fills out really quickly.
Sorry?
I would assume that fills out really, really quickly.
I mean, it does, because look, the scholarships are quite popular. And the reason is because they are competitive. So you have to make a really good application. There's a separate application for the scholarships where we look at your statement of purpose. We need 2 references, either from your school or college where you studied, or from your work. So we need 1 academic, 1 professional reference if you're a professional, if you're working. So we consider all that. And again, what else have you done other than, if you just spent 4 years studying, it's great, you've got good academics, but what else have you done in those 4 years of studies back home? I mean, have you done anything else? Have you volunteered somewhere? Have you done any certifications? We consider all that.
Cool. Okay, there's quite a few questions that are built up here. We've covered quite a few questions, but I'm just going to see what else we can pick up. There's a few questions around portfolio. Sush, that have come here. How can one have a portfolio? I actually did a course when I first came to New Zealand where I had to submit a portfolio, so I do understand that fairly well, but maybe you just want to quickly talk about it for someone that's not from a design background and now needs to have a portfolio but doesn't have work experience. What does that actually, how does that work?
Right. For example, if you're getting into a bachelor degree, for example, you're from school. I mean, in New Zealand, students start working on their portfolio in their high schools. So if you don't have one, what we look for is a broad range of skills. So that includes, you can't just say I'm a photographer, I take a number of photographs and that's my portfolio. That doesn't quite fit in with what we're looking for. You can do photography, you can do painting, you can do watercolors, freehand sketching, digital, anything that you've done in terms of graphic design or animation, anything. So we want to see a broad range of skills, not just one. You can't just say, okay, I do pencil sketches and that's it. No, we need to see more. So we want to make sure that you've got a wide range of skills covered. If you're applying for the grad dip, for example, it's the same set of criteria apply. But if you're working somewhere in that space and now want to do a grad dip, send us some things you've done for your work. It could be websites, it could be some digital shorts, videos, anything. Send it to us and we'll have a look. And if we feel that we need to see more, we'll let the student know. It's not like they send us a portfolio and we say, oh, it's not good enough, so it's a no. We'll go back to the student and say, look, it's a nice portfolio, but we are looking for some more in these areas. Can you provide us any in these particular, to cover these particular areas? So it's definitely a conversation that we'll have with the student.
And it makes sense because you are coming in for a creative course, and like Sush said right at the beginning, you really want the person to have a creative flair because you don't want to put someone in the course that doesn't have a bone of creativity in them because you're just setting them up. It's the wrong course for them. So that's great. There's another question that I really want to, we've covered the scholarships. There's another really good question that I want to pick up here, Sush. It's asking that, is there any pathway available for PG and master courses for those that don't meet the English requirements? And the reason why I'm asking this question is really relevant is because July intake's just around the corner. IELTS and PT dates are really booked out because after lockdown, people have pounced on them. And so there are no dates. And a lot of people want to get into the July intakes and not really wait for the Feb uncertainty when that's going to happen. And so is there an option for them to be able to get along a pathway or to have an exemption on the English testing if they are a returning student in New Zealand?
I mean, look, based on NZQ recommendations, if they already have a bachelor degree or a graduate diploma or a PG diploma from New Zealand, I don't think you need English again, IELTS again. But if you don't, we do have English language courses the students can get into. So we offer the New Zealand certificate in English language at levels 3, 4, and 5. So if you are looking to transition into PG or a master's program where you need an IELTS of 6.5 and nothing less than 6, so we would recommend you get into the NZCEL level 5, which helps you go from 6 to 6.5. Again, we need to see where the student is at, basically. So there will be an.
But there is an opportunity.
There's an opportunity
for them to get an exemption on that English. And I think that's what we are saying. The message that's coming out quite strong is that if you are considering, we just need to get that application and see what comes back. And I think from there, we take it on. What I do, and I know there's some questions here, I will take this question, but I do really want to spend some time in one of my favorite courses at WelTec, which is the grad dips in engineering. And I'll tell you shortly why it's one of my favorite courses. You've shown me around the campus. I've seen where it's delivered. So it is quite fascinating. We'll just take this question. Well, it looks like an immigration question. So it says, please explain about level 8 courses. So Dharsan, the level 8 courses allow you to get a 3-year open work visa at the end of the course, but when you're doing the course, your partner remains on a visitor visa, if that's what you're wanting to know, because your question's really loose. I can't really get too much into it. I'm going to ask you, Sush, about this question. It says, any industry placements in the master's in IT as part of the course? Any campus placements after the graduation? I know we've covered this already, but this person seems to be specifically interested in the master's course, so we'll just touch on that and then we move on to the engineering.
Look, like I said, internship is a component in the master's program. So students are expected to do a project with the local industry. And then we have an end of the year project presentations where we invite local industry to come and have a look at our student projects. That's a good way for students to make those connections with local industry. And that happens throughout the master's program anyway. We run our master's program in our city campus in Wellington, which is close to all the major IT hubs in Wellington. So that's a good thing. So it's definitely part of the master's program. In terms of placements after graduation, that's not something that we do in New Zealand in general. The expectation is that once you are at that level, you need to go out and make those connections to actually get a job. And we provide students with the opportunity to do that throughout the program. Like I said, we can take the horse to the water, but we can't really make the horse drink. So that's where it is. We will take the student to put them in front of the industry, give them those connections through our lecturers and through our existing industry connections. But it's up to the student to make sure that they use all that and have a successful career.
I think that comes the second question on that, which says, will we graduate from WelTec or Whitireia? Like I said, there's a lot of confusion. If I understand this correctly, you graduate from the offer that you've got. So if you've enrolled with WelTec, you graduate with WelTec. If you've enrolled with Whitireia, you graduate with Whitireia. So that's correct, right? I missed a question here from Iqbal. It talks about the cookery course. I know we haven't talked about it. There's a lot of onshore people really interested in the cookery course. So we'll just quickly talk about that, please, Sush.
Yeah, definitely. So we offer a 2-year program in cookery. We have a School of Hospitality, again, bang in the city center on Cuba Street in Wellington. If you've been to Wellington before, you know that's like the hub for fine dining or restaurants. There's a whole lot of restaurants there. We work closely with a number of restaurants there. Most of our students, in fact, work part-time in those restaurants around the campus. We also have a restaurant on campus where students get on-the-job training. That restaurant is open to the public. That's pretty common system across the Institute of Technology sector. So we definitely do that. There's also work placement within the cookery program where students spend up to 4 weeks working for in a local restaurant in culinary or hospitality scene. And that gives them those industry connections as well. So yeah, look, it's a great campus, fantastic facilities. We've got around 4 or 5 commercial kitchens. It was built in 2012, so it's very modern and state-of-the-art. So great place to learn cookery. Wellington is like a foodie capital. According to one report, there are more restaurants here per capita than New York. Look, that's what they say. So
that's all you need to say, isn't it? So just on the cookery course, one of the things that I need to ask, and we get asked that quite frequently, it is a 2-year course. When you're coming from offshore, you definitely need the 2 years offered together. But when you're onshore, can you just get the offer for the level 4 and then just get a job? If you want to just stop it as a baker, you can just study level 4 and stop. Is there an option just to take the level 4 offer, see how things go, and then if you want to go back to study, you can go back to the level 5 or stop?
Yeah, there are 2 separate programs. The level 4 is a New Zealand certificate in cookery, and it's an exit qualification. So once you finish level 4, you get the certificate in cookery level 4, and then you come back and do the level 5, which is the New Zealand Diploma in Cookery Advanced. So there are 2 independent qualifications. So if students want to do just the level 4, they're free to. We also do the bakery level 4. So definitely students can come in and do either the bakery level 4 or the cookery level 4 if they just want to do that.
Brilliant. Okay, now let's talk about, I've saved the best for last. So now we're going to talk about the graduate diploma in engineering. Now, I know that you've got the NZ Diploma in Engineering, which is mechanical and civil, in the level 5 and 6, which is for 2 years. But I specifically want to talk about the graduate diploma in engineering, and the majors are building services, mechatronics, structures, water waste. And I specifically want to talk about this because I do know for a fact that there's a lot of engineers, so sort of BTECs and bachelors of engineering people that have come into New Zealand, have either gone into business courses, or people that had diplomas are really keen to kind of get back into engineering. And this course is quite specialized. And when I was there last, you told me about the students and how they were placed and how they were involved in construction projects and all of that. So please talk to our people about these courses and what they make an individual. What's the career outcome from there on?
Yeah. So what I'll focus on is the 3 majors. I will leave mechatronics out because July is meant to be the last intake for mechatronics. So we won't be offering that again. So what I'll do is focus on building services, structures, and water and waste. So through those 3 programs, we cover mechanical engineering, we cover civil engineering, also chemical engineering at some stage. So if you have a background in, say, civil engineering, then you can apply for either the graduate diploma in structures or the graduate diploma in water and waste engineering. Okay. So both of them deal with the civil engineering side of things. In terms of outcomes, again, like I talked about, there's a lot of infrastructure projects that are underway, not just in Wellington, but across New Zealand. So having a structures background makes a lot of sense for civil engineers. Again, because it's New Zealand, we deal with timber structures here as well. So it's quite different to what someone would have studied offshore, particularly in the subcontinent, for example. So it's really good. If you're interested in the structural engineering side of things, then that's the way to go. The other area where there's massive investment is water and waste, especially in Wellington region. There's a big push to upgrade the water and waste infrastructure of the city and the wider Wellington region. So it's a great program to get into. Again, very practical. All our programs are very practical and hands-on. We work very closely with our local city councils. For example, last year we had 3 graduates, all of them women in tech, which is really wonderful to see women in engineering. All of them worked on projects for the local city council in Lower Hutt, in Wellington, and also across the wider Wellington region. And it was great. I mean, in terms of their outcomes, all 3 of them are working for other city councils across New Zealand now. So it's a great outcome for us. So that's what we aim to do. We engage with the local industry for both water and waste and structures, and make sure our students get the industry training that they need while studying, and also make those connections necessary. The other program is building services, and that is targeted at mechanical engineers. I know some students get confused because I say building services, but then I say mechanical engineering. It's not civil, because when I say building services, I talk about the HVAC system, so the heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and that's mechanical because you're studying thermodynamics, fluid mechanics, air transfer, heat transfer systems. Again, infrastructure, a lot of growth, a lot of building, and we need building services. We came up with the building services program a couple of years back after one of our lecturers spent a considerable amount of time with the local building services consultancy. We worked with them for around 6 to 8 months, and then based on industry feedback and the kind of skills they're looking for, the lecturer came back and developed the building services program. So the program has been developed based on industry feedback. So what students are studying is what exactly the kind of skills that the industry is looking for is what the program is based on. So it's a great program to get into. Again, strong industry connections, industry project in your second semester. It's not an internship, like it's a project.
So just further dwelling into this, this program will lead people. So it's obviously industry focused. There's a lot of work that they do. They can work as a facilities manager. They can work as a project planner. They can get into site engineering. To get into the grad dip, there's 2 questions that I have. One, I really want you to quickly talk about some of the examples or case studies of students that have been placed through these programs, and what kind of organizations and what numbers are we talking about. Second, I want you to roughly talk about sort of the employment rates. I am kind of getting on to really employment focus because there's a lot of interest, and that's where we're driving these sessions. If there is, what is from your perspective the employment percentage from these courses? And then the third question I want to ask you on this is, there are some people that are in New Zealand that maybe from Fiji, may have had many years of work experience, may have not finished a bachelor's of engineering degree to be able to get. Can the experience substitute for someone to get into the grad dip, into this specific grad dip?
Yeah, again, I wouldn't say no. We will look at cases on a case-by-case basis. We've had instances in the past where students have done a diploma in engineering and have worked in the engineering field for a number of years, and now they want to do a graduate diploma. Definitely, we can look at that. Depends on how strong their experience is in what area, and how it fits in with the graduate diploma that we offer. So look, we will look at each application on a case-by-case basis. If someone doesn't have a degree in engineering but has a diploma, but there's enough experience there, then yeah, we will look at it. Ideally, like I said, we look at students with a degree in engineering in either mechanical or civil, or even chemical. If someone wants to do water and waste, they can come in with a chemical engineering background as well. We'll definitely accept that into the water and waste program. So that's something we look at. In terms of outcomes, some of the companies where students have gone on to work include Fletcher, Downer, local Kapiti City Council, Levin City Council, the work in Hutt City Council, in Wellington Water. So there are quite a few organizations where the students have gotten into. And in terms of success rates, can't really tell you it's a 90 or 95% success rate because we haven't really done kind of research into how many graduates have actually got employment. But there's definitely a high percentage of students who got employed even during their studies. So there are two kinds. One, those who got employed got job offers when they were still studying based on the project that they were doing for that company, and those who got in, say, within a few months after graduation. It's definitely high, but I can definitely come back to you with a number on how many actually got into employment.
Yeah. So that's just building off to the next question, because I'm getting this question here. Because I mean, often and for the longest time, I've talked about trades courses and how frustrating it is that international students can't get into trades. And this sort of sounds to me, you know, you talked about the building services and you talked about the mechanical engineering background. Can this course lead people into sort of ventilation or air conditioning technicians, mechanics, into those kind of roles? Is that what it is? Because it is sort of on the line of trades, and I know there's the demand in those roles. So is there an opportunity to have career pathways in that direction?
I mean, it is possible, I suppose. Look, the idea is not to get them into the trades area because we have a separate trades campus for that. This is more, you're looking at design engineers, HVAC design engineers who design those systems, who plan those systems. You're looking at planning engineers, design engineers. So you're basically targeting at that level. But if someone wants to get into the technician side at a later stage, I'm sure they could. But what we are targeting through the graduate diploma is those students who kind of get into the more senior management kind of roles rather than the actual technician kind of roles. The technician roles come through from our New Zealand Diploma in Engineering, where you can actually become an engineering technician in either mechanical or civil. We don't do electrical anymore, but mechanical and civil engineering technicians, they come through our New Zealand Diploma in Engineering pathway.
Okay, yep, that's the 2 years.
Yeah.
Perfect. No, I think that's really good. That sort of sums up some really, I mean, obviously we can't get through all the courses and I haven't been able to go through my whole list, but I haven't even talked about the nursing. I haven't talked about, I haven't talked about any of those courses, but you know, we do need to leave something to bring you back in for the next time.
Sure.
I think we've got some really incredible information. I think some of the takeaway points that I will leave for people that are listening or will be listening to this video later on is that one, you know, if you are looking at Wellington, I mean, that is the place to be. We know that pre-COVID, it was the job, you know, the job market was booming compared to the other hotspots in New Zealand. Post-COVID, obviously, you know, if you look at the same stats, then you would assume that Wellington would bounce back much quicker. If you are looking at sort of Wellington, then WelTec is the place and Whitireia is the place to be in that technology space. And with the range of courses that are being offered, you need to be really sensible now, people, with the course choices that you're having. And I think we've talked about some really fantastic, technologically driven, you know, those demands filling courses. Yeah, and if you've got any questions, you please let us know. We are, just for people to know, we are authorized education and immigration partners with WelTec and Whitireia, which is why we bring this. So if you have certain background and you're not sure, or you're looking at sort of getting into a different background, that's exactly what we can help you with. Sush, do you have any parting comments before we then bring you back again and start all over again?
Look, if you are considering studying in New Zealand, all I would say is, look, do consider Wellington as your first choice because it's a great place to live and study. I've lived here for a number of years and I absolutely love it. People are friendly, a lot of opportunities. And it's a great place to visit as well. I would say go to wellingtonnz.com. Great little website. You can get a lot of information about living, studying, and working in Wellington, and you'll be amazed. And I look forward to welcoming at least some of you to Wellington at some stage.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sush. I really, really appreciate all of the information. You sort of this treasure box of all of the information that you've given us today. We really thank you. Until we see you again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Arunima. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and good luck with this series. I think it's a great way of reaching out to students, both onshore and offshore. Wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Sush. Have a good night.
Thanks. Cheers.